Hello and welcome, Delta Heads! Today I want to talk to you about a character you might not think about too often, even if you're a die-hard Deltarune fan. Say hello to Ramb, Chapter 3 shopkeeper with a goofy smile and a British accent. On the surface, he looks unassuming, forgettable even. But if you look a little deeper, I think that Ramb holds the keys to some of Deltarune's most enigmatic mysteries, and might just have a few connections to a certain Dr. W.D. Gaster. So strap in, sit tight, and grab a TV dinner, loyal Delta Heads, because this theory is about to get rambunctious. Okay, I lied. There is no theory. I just need to talk about Ramb, okay? So I'm going to talk about Ramb for like the next 45 minutes, and you are going to sit there and listen, okay? I'm warning you now, I don't have a conclusion. I'm not going somewhere with this. All I can say, all that I'm sure of, is we are not done with this motherfucker. Ramb will return. I bet my left dog on it. And hey, if you like what I'm doing here, please do remember to subscribe and hit the bell and hype and like and all the shit that YouTubers always tell you to do. Turns out it really does help a lot. And if you really like my stuff, then the best way to support me is on Patreon, where you get access to early videos, monthly Q&As, and end-of-video shoutouts. Okay, I'll shut up. Thanks for listening. Alright, what's up, you little freaks? I've tried to section my thoughts into like 3 categories here that start off grounded and get progressively more unhinged, because I am just so fascinated with this guy. I have so much to say about him. Because when I first played the chapter, okay, truthfully, I barely registered this guy's existence. I honestly thought he was 2 guys. Because remember, in the Spamton sweepstakes, there were 2 separate pages, one called Ramb and one called Ramb, referencing like the misspelling of Ramb's name in the one quiz question. And so I thought Ramb was the guy running the booth up front, and then Ramb was the guy letting you do the sword route in the back. And I logged on to Twitter after playing the chapter, and there were all these people saying like, "Oh, I love Ramb. Ramb's such a tragic character." And I was like, Ramb didn't fucking do anything. What are you talking about? The Ramb who gave me a good pat on the butt when I got an S rank and never talked to me again? What, that guy? Obviously, I understood the truth eventually, but there was this big fascination with Ramb after the chapters dropped, I feel. This fascination that I wasn't really in on for whatever reason. Like, everyone loved making fan art of him, talking about how tragic he was, and I sort of just wasn't attached to him at that point. But now time has passed and something really strange has happened. The tables have turned. I care immensely about Ramb. I cannot stop thinking about Ramb, and no one gives a shit about Ramb anymore. No one's talking about Ramb. I feel like everyone on Twitter who was talking about Ramb back in the day has been replaced by the fucking Mike psyop, by the Mike fandom, by the fucking Copycats Friendpins Plutat fandom, whatever the fuck you guys got going on over there. So to start out, I just wanted to break down my thoughts about Ramb as a character. Something that makes his character really fascinating to me is how much of it depends on his relationship to Chris, and the fact that Chris doesn't talk back to him, because all of his dialogue is talking directly to Chris. There's nothing he says that indicates how Chris is reacting to what he's saying, besides the one time where he says "mum's the word," indicating that they're not telling him why they made the Dark Fountain. So we're left to analyze like half of a relationship here. And I think in the modern day, it's sort of resulted in a split over what Ramb's genuine intentions are. Because on one hand, you have Ramb playing this kindly uncle character who's just happy to see Chris again and wants to catch up with them. His whole deal is, I know Tennis games suck ass, so hey, come back here and we can play your favorite game, right? The one piece of shit Pippins that I hate, who gives the monologue after he petrifies, has this line where he says he's always condescending to us, saying what's best for Chris. And it's like, oh, you think he's like a bad person because he wants what's best for Chris? Meanwhile, everyone else is trying to fucking enable their plan with the knight. And you're a Pippins, you're probably trying to swindle them out of their fucking money, dude. Who are you to talk? Sorry, I just fucking hate that Pippins, man. But on the other hand, there's also more of like an ominous view of Ramb as like the guy who enables you to do the sword route and is like obviously trying to be a secret boss as hard as he can. Does he truthfully think this is what's best for Chris? Is he related to ERAM somehow? And does Chris even really like him? Is this over-familiar disposition something Chris is okay with? And like any good character analysis, there is certainly truth and nuance to be found on both sides of this argument, but I am here to say that I am joining the war on Ramb on the side of Ramb. So let's talk about Ramb's backstory. By his own admission, Ramb is a power strip, one that Chris and Azrael took home from the library when they were kids and played with him just like a regular toy. There's a really good video by AskError87 that actually argues that he is a Type K power strip in particular. Basically, all the Plug Boys from Chapter 2 are the Type B power strip that most American households use. They have long eyes, the frowny mouth, the wide face, and cat ears. But then Ramb has more rounded eyes, a smiling mouth, a rounded face, and dog ears. There's this little tiny piece of misinformation that floats its way around the fandom that this is a British plug, but it's actually a Danish plug. But in the end, the video still makes the argument that because it's a European plug, that's why Ramb has the British accent, and I still think that argument holds up. After all, Chris and Azrael are the ones who would have given him the accent, so they probably didn't know any better. And another really good case the video makes for Ramb being one of these Type K power strips is that Ramb would have no use in like an American-esque place like Hometown, so if the library had one of these things for whatever reason, it makes sense why they would let Chris and Azrael take one home to play with. Basically, this video is very good, you should check it out, and I consider Ramb being a foreign type of power strip to be canon unless proven otherwise. And taking that into account, Ramb has a story that I feel like people are sort of... It goes under discussed, I think. Starting out, there's the Shutta you can talk to that gives you a sort of timeline of the Dreamer household dark world, where he talks about the Purple Cliffs. Once upon a time, there was a land like Purple Cliffs, a frozen waste, watery basin, a metal desert. But this theater was built upon that, and it grew. Not everyone liked the change, some people left. Of course, that was in the days of the black and white. The Shutta's talking about how, there used to be a dark world with all these areas, you know, representing the couch and the fridge and the stove and the sink. But then the theater showed up and the theater grew, and the theater is the TV, Tenna being introduced to the house. And not everyone liked that, some people left. And what kind of darkness would leave when a TV gets introduced? Well, to me, this is telling the story of a TV taking over as the source of entertainment, right? The darkness that left would have been the toys that got put away or thrown out. Now the only toys left in the living room are the action figures that sit on the windows for decoration. Those are what the shadow guys are. There are some loose dice and cards sitting around, like the Pippins and the Rudins and the couch. The TV is now the head honcho of the dark world, and all the other darkners are his employees. But then, one day, Chris and Azrael just show up at home playing make-believe with something that's not even a toy. Yes, Ramb is not pre-Tenna, he's post-Tenna, and we know this from the fucking stupid Pippins that I hate. Here, let's just read that guy's whole monologue.
Don't bother, Chris. Ramb's already turned to stone a bit ago. He was a plug, but because you played with him like any other toy, it made him feel special. Might have given him a little bit of an ego, in fact. Always condescending to any plan, saying, "Oh, what's best for Chris?" Couldn't get rid of him, so Tenna made him work the stand. Us from Card Castle fit in fine. Him, he never really belonged. His first day at this stand, he joked, "Oh, how about the usual?" No one laughed. Mixing drinks alone for himself. He wasn't allowed to handle the points. No one will shed a tear for him. Inside, he was probably stone already.
People say Toby doesn't write ontologically evil characters, but they fail to consider that fucking guy. But anyways, you can see from that monologue that Ramb showed up when the TV world order was already established, right? He shows up one day and is somehow important enough to Azrael and Chris to become a living room mainstay. And everyone in the TV world fucking hates him for it. He just like effortlessly appeals to Chris in a way that no one else does. And how am I so sure that Chris loved him in particular? His dog ears. Chris loves dogs, man. They're fixated on dogs. Now, if you're not familiar, there are several examples all over this game of Chris desperately wanting to be a dog. There's flavor text of them howling and scratching at doors and wanting dog treats. And there are 2 separate instances of them dressing up as a dog during a battle. And whether you want to interpret that as a symbol of Chris wanting to be a monster, or you interpret that as Chris literally just being a furry, it's still quite obvious that Chris feels a kinship with dogs. And don't come at me with some shit like, oh, just because Chris wants to be a dog doesn't mean Chris likes dogs. It's okay, like, go fucking ask someone with a dog persona if they like dogs in real life. I think you'll find that they fucking do. My point is, Ramb has dog ears for a reason, I think. And I think it's a sign that Chris really did love him. Maybe they're a detail that Chris imagined on him themselves, or maybe his appearance is just a manifestation of their closeness, you know? The mark that Chris left on him. But Ramb having dog ears and Ramb becoming a permanent fixation of the living room after so many other toys had gone. For whatever fucking weird reason, I think this power strip really meant something to Chris. And maybe it did give him an ego. Now this is something that I've done a lot of thinking about. It's sort of been in contention in my mind for a while. Because the stupid garbage Pippin says that being played with gave Ramb an gave him an ego. And to me that never fucking checked out. Like that was just hater talk. Like nothing about Ramb's disposition gave off an ego to me. He's like a caring uncle. But looking at it from this point of view, maybe that overfamiliar attitude is the ego. And to get at what I mean, I want to take a look at one last line from Shit Pippins over here. You may not have heard this one before because you only get it if you talk to him again after hearing his whole spiel. But when I heard it for the first time, it just clicked, like Ramb's entire character just tied together for me.
Ramb, well, he was like Tenna, I guess. Two guys trapped in the past, just different ones.
Two guys trapped in the past, just different ones. This missable line is the fucking crux of Ramb's character to me, because it made me understand that Ramb and Tenna are foils of each other. Tenna and Ramb are two characters whose self-worth is defined by Chris's love for them, and both of them are trapped in a past where they are Chris's favorite. And how they react to changing times to Chris growing up is what determines their fate. Tenna's insecurity versus Ramb's ego. Tenna is tripping over himself all chapter to please Chris, to make sure their deal is fulfilled, keep them entertained, keep them reminded of the good times, because he is desperate to be loved by Chris again. Or anybody for that matter, obviously. And this desperation causes him to break down to drive all of his employees and friends away. Really, the only reason he's able to be redeemed by the end of the chapter is because of the grace of Susie, by the love of someone who's not Chris. Then meanwhile, you have Ramb, who doesn't give off a hint of worry or desperation. From the get-go, he's talking to Chris like an old friend. He is entirely self-assured that he and Chris are picking up exactly where they left off, catching up like nothing's changed. And who knows if Chris is giving any of this back? Like I was discussing before, the only documented Chris reaction we have to anything Ramb says is complete silence when Ramb asks why they made the fountain. Complete silence. And yet Ramb's disposition does not change. His self-assuredness remains steadfast throughout the entire chapter. He believes that he is Chris's favorite throughout barely being interacted with, receiving the silent treatment, being relegated to being a side character. And where does that get him? Well, he was utterly convinced that he belonged, and it turns out he didn't. And when that became apparent, there was no one there to shed a tear for him. Not the old friend he expected to have in Chris, or a new friend like Tenna had in Susie. The ultimate tragedy of Ramb is that Tenna was at least self-aware enough to realize that no one wanted him anymore. Some people don't notice this, but Ramb doesn't even get to show up in Castletown. And there are a few theories as to why this happens that I will be touching on later in this video, but what if Chris just didn't really care enough to bring him? They've grown up, maybe it's just kind of embarrassing that they used to play with a power strip. Maybe they don't like the reminders of a certain time in their life when a girl would come over and they would play imaginary games together. In any case, Ramb never belonged in TV World, and without Chris to love him, he just didn't fit in. I mean, it was to be expected. He was the wrong kind of plug. Wow, it's so dark in here. It's so dark, it reminds me of how it looks when I put on my Manta sleep mask. Which reminds me, this video is sponsored by Manta Sleep. That's right, Cammy got a sponsor. I'm moving up in the world, baby! Manta Sleep makes some of the most comfortable and advanced sleep masks on the planet, providing total blackout, darker than dark, darkness. Studies show that even a little light exposure while you're trying to sleep can whack your whole circadian rhythm up. So if you're like me and you find yourself tired a lot during the day, getting one of these things could be a game changer for you. They sent me their Manta Pro sleep mask and their Manta white noise machine, and I gotta tell you, this mask is so nice. The fabric is nice and breathable, which is important when you're a hot sleeper like me. The eye cups go deep, so there's zero pressure on my eyes no matter what position I'm in, and they're adjustable, so you have no reason to worry if it's gonna fit, even if you got a big weird head like me or a small weird head like this thing. The white noise machine is great too. It has 15 different sounds built in, including brown noise, rain noise, choral noise. I didn't even know choral was a noise, but it sure as hell puts my ass to sleep. Manta sleep, that is. Manta sleep has something for every type of sleeper, so if you're interested, use the link in my description to go to mantasleep.com and use coupon code BOIG at checkout for 10% off. That's right, B-O-I-G, BOIG. That's how my name has always been pronounced, I swear. Thank you to Manta Sleep for sponsoring this video. Well, that about wraps up the grounded character analysis section of this video. Let me know if you liked it, my little eulogy for Ramb, I guess. I wanted to shed some light on parts of his character that I feel like I genuinely don't think anyone is really... I don't know, maybe I'm sniffing my own farts here. And maybe you think I'm off base, maybe I got it totally wrong, and the universe, I think, probably agrees with you. Because this is the second time I'm sitting down to record this last, like, 2/3 of this video. I lost the whole damn thing. So clearly I'm being punished for something. In any case, welcome to section 2 of the video, where I stop pretending I'm capable of any serious literary analysis and stick to what I'm best at. And you know what that means. It's theory time, baby. Because maybe after that first part you're thinking to yourself, wow, I didn't think much of Ramb originally, but he really did have his own little character arc. He really was a fully fleshed out character. And that's where I'm gonna have to cut you off, buddy, because if I may remind you, we have not seen the last of Ramb in this game. He has not completed his arc yet. Ramb will return. There are so many different ways that Ramb is telegraphed to be important. In fact, I'm not just going to stop there. Not only is he telegraphed to be important, but he is deliberately set up to feel robbed of his importance, both in and outside of the game. And I'm sure you're already aware of a few of the examples that I'm going to list here, but I just want to catalog them all in one place to show you how ridiculous it is. So, number 1, first of all, he was important enough to get foreshadowed in the Spamton sweepstakes. 2 whole pages dedicated to this guy, DELTARUNE.com/Ramb and DELTARUNE.com/Ramb. And Ramb especially was so mysterious, establishing his ties to the Shadow Mantle and what we would later come to know as the Sword Route, and even the page title foreshadowing his death. Weeks before the game came out, Toby was like, get this guy's name in your fucking mouth. You need to start theorizing about the twin secret bosses Ramb and Ramb right fucking now. Deliberate build up to this guy who, when you meet him, he's like a shopkeeper without a shop? And that's number 2 on my list here. Here's how we start getting into how Ramb feels deliberately robbed. Ramb is chapter 3's shopkeeper, but he doesn't even get a shop. Instead, these like 4 spread out, inconvenient ass vending machines do his job for him. What a strange design choice. Especially when he's sitting in this booth that would make for a perfect shop screen. So perfect that fans have made shop screens for Ramb themselves. I'm standing in one right now. But he doesn't get that. We don't get to see a nice up-close shot of Ramb. Something that both previous chapters have each had multiple of, by the way. He doesn't get the same graces afforded to him that Shawm and Rules and Swatch and Sweet Cap and Cakes get. The endgame explanation we get for this is that Tenna doesn't want Ramb touching the points. Which is like insane, right? When's the last time you heard of the McDonald's CEO not letting the cashiers touch the money? I point this out to acknowledge that I do believe the in-game reason, but I think the choice was made for the meta reason of robbing Ramb of importance. And for a long time I had a little pet theory about Ramb's potential shop. The song that you're hearing right now is called Shop 3, or at least that's the only official name that we have for it. Mr. Fox released it in a Deltarune newsletter saying that this would be the shop theme for most of the remaining shops in the game. But if you're a fucking Insano fan like me, you already knew this song because there's a piano rendition of it in-game. If you leave Chris alone with the piano in the Holiday House segment in Chapter 4, this is one of the many songs they can play. And its file name is Chris_piano_shop. Now listen to this other song. This is another song Chris can play that goes by the file name Chris_piano_waiting room. And the main melody in it shares with TV World, the song that plays when you're exploring the studio in Chapter 3. The one that's all like... It also does share this melody with Hip Shop and Green Room, but personally I feel like the DNA is most apparent in TV World. But based on the name Waiting Room, I feel like this track had to be like some sort of proto-version of Green Room, right? Like at some point he must have wanted the Green Room to have an original track that was more connected to TV World, but I guess somewhere along the way he decided a slowed down version of Hip Shop was better somehow. All this basically to say, among the songs that Chris plays on the piano, there are certainly songs we've already seen and certainly songs from the future, but I think there's a good chance that there are scrapped songs in there as well. And look, I know Toby said Shop 3 is a song for the future, but before he said that I had these two puzzle pieces that fit together perfectly. A potentially unused song from the files called Shop, and a shopkeeper without a shop. And just listen to this music, man. Imagine walking into Ramb's shop, hearing this play. He's polishing a glass and he looks up. Chris! Oh, I knew you'd stop by. Why don't you stick around and we can catch up, love? I would like to apologize to the British community. So now that we know this theme is going to be used in future chapters, do I still think it was supposed to be Ramb's shop theme originally? I don't really know. On one hand, if it was never his song and it was always just a song for the future, then it doesn't really affect my argument either way. But on the other hand, if this indicates that he was supposed to have a shop at some point, but then it was decided he shouldn't, that just makes me lean even further into the question of why. Why does this man not have a shop? You could argue that I'm bizarrely passionate about the idea of Ramb having a shop, and maybe it's just because I want to see his handsome little face up close, I can admit that. My dog just coughed, bro. You're the one I'm betting on Ramb coming back, buddy. But let me remind you that this was number 2 on the list of reasons why Ramb was robbed of importance. And I know I went on a bit of a tangent there, so I'll try and make the rest of the list a little more rapid fire. Number 3 on the list, and the item that you're probably going to be the most familiar with, is the crazy lingo that Ramb is constantly dropping. If you're in this fandom and you only know one thing about Ramb, is that he's the biggest secret boss wannabe on the fucking planet. Bro sincerely thinks he's on the team. You probably already know the quotes I'm gonna say, but I'm gonna say them anyways. Time flies. Seems like just yesterday you and that girl had everyone here lined up. Queen on her side, king on your side, tenant in back. Oh, it was...
Chaos, chaos.
Ah, Chris, stick around here long enough and you'll learn...
Freedoms.
Just a thing for...
Big shots.
Chris, that
friend
of yours, she's...
very interesting.
Who knows? Perhaps she could be the
key gen
to unlocking your
roots
and taking back your
green freedom
from
December holiday hell's roaring black knife nightmare night.
The last one might not have been in the finished game, I don't remember. But he is constantly dropping these secret boss adjacent words. And on top of that, he just fills in a lot of the patterns people were looking for in secret bosses after the first 2 chapters. Weird little guy who's an outcast in their world, talks about freedom a lot, associated with a side quest, discarded object. It was telegraphed so hard he's developed this reputation as like a fake-out secret boss. Funny enough, when I first played through the game, I fucking did not pick up on that at all. I guess just because it was new Deltarune, I felt like I was fucking dreaming the whole time I was playing it. My eyes were rolled back into my head and I was foaming at the mouth. Of course I didn't see what was being telegraphed. Then another quality about Ramb that's made him more appealing to the fandom as a secret boss, and number 4 on our list here, he's a fucking plug person. Plug boys are introduced in chapter 2 and they're all over the fucking place. They're enemies, they're NPCs, they even get like a mini boss fight, the WER-ERAMB. The game makes sure it drills into your head that you know what these things are, that plug people have a second cool ass form that they get when they have something plugged into their face. Which, by the way, Toby shared the concept art for, and you can see he designed them and designed all their attack patterns completely by himself. Not to say he's not hands-on in designing other enemies, of course, but in this whole concept art dump, this is the only enemy with a full-ass design document. Almost like he really wanted to get these guys right in particular. Originally, I imagined Queen controlling various characters using plugs, as seen in some of the very early concept art. However, I ended up restricting this idea to mostly one character. Mostly one character, huh? Interesting. 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 I actually think he's referring to Birdly, I'm just having fun. But getting back to Ramb, you introduce this species that come with a cool second form built in. Then the next chapter you introduce a major character who's part of that species, or secondary character, whatever. And you expect me to believe you're gonna kill him off without letting him transform? These things are called werewires, they got werewolf in the goddamn name, and you're telling me you're not gonna let the one who's actually a dog become one? I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. And look, maybe there's a world where I could buy it. Maybe it would be a darkly interesting choice to have this character who exists just for the tragedy of existing solely in Chapter 3 and being forgotten there, deprived of the presence he was so clearly meant to have. But number 5 on this list is why I can't believe it. Where is the Ramb merch? So Toby has this little rule about Deltarune merch where Darkners are allowed to have merch, but not Lightners. Lightners are allowed to appear on certain pieces of merch, I've noticed. Like, they're always on the posters, and you can get pins of their faces. But for whatever reason, you're not allowed to own a Lightner. There are no plushes or figures of them. And because of this, Darkners are merched the fuck up, especially the little guys. Look at this plush lineup. We got Hat Ralsei, Hatless Ralsei, Lancer, Jevil, Spamton, Chom, Tenna. 3 outfits for Ralsei. A Tenna figure. The pixelated versions of Chris, Susie, and Ralsei count as Darkners? The mics just got their own shirt. I have a vivid memory that this Newbert hat was here on the day Deltarune Chapter 2 came out. And I could accept that Ramb has no individual merch. I could accept that Ramb is not as popular as any of these characters. Even Newbert, even if that's bullshit. But it's not just that. Ramb is nowhere to be seen on this entire merch page. Even on the Chapter 3 poster where they were struggling to come up with things to fill space. Where Rules is bigger than Tenna for some reason and every single enemy from the chapter appears, including the water cooler. But Ramb, one of 4 original named NPCs from this chapter. Arbiter of the Sword Route, nowhere to be seen. Not even gonna mention how Jevil and Spamton were on their respective posters even though they were secret. Oh wait, I just fucking did. Now, let's take a look at the Chapter 3 pin set. Pin number 1, Tenna. That's an obvious one. Pin number 2, Hatless Ralsei. Well, only the Hat Ralsei pin existed up to this point, so even though it's a little late, I guess I'll accept it. Pin number 3, La Nino and El Nina. How nice, both of them have taken up 1 pin. They must be making room for the 4th guy. Who's the 4th guy? A regular fucking shadow guy? What are you talking about? Do not come in the comments and tell me that's Pluie. That is not fucking Pluie and you know it. What is going on here? Making La Nino and El Nina separate pins would have made more sense than this. It's like this entire pin set is going out of its way to shit on anyone who would have wanted a Ramb pin. So what to make of all this? Well, I do want to acknowledge the possibility that this could be sort of extending the theme or the bit outside of the game. The line that defines Ramb is no one will shed a tear for him. He was forgotten and unloved in the game, and so we're making it feel that way outside of the game too by refusing to acknowledge him. But I don't think that's what's happening. I think this is another example of Ramb being robbed of his presence in the story. And I think we will get Ramb merch when Ramb finds his importance in the story again, when he comes back. I'm serious, I seriously believe this. Say it with me, guys. Ramb will return. This is my mantra, I repeat it to myself every night to fall asleep. Okay, so I've basically made the case for why Ramb feels like he should come back on a meta level, but I failed to make a case for why he should actually come back in the story. And speaking of which, we have barely talked about the Sword Route today, huh? And Ramb's involvement with the Sword Route is sort of hugely important to both analyzing and theorizing about Ramb, I think, so I should get on that. But to begin talking about the Sword Route, let's start from the very end. Something happens to Ramb at the end of the Sword Route. The last you see of him, he's in the process of petrifying, but once you leave the room, he's just gone. And our only clue of what happened to him comes from the rabbit down the hall, who says, Chris,
I was so scared I couldn't move. Ramb was... Wait a second. That's funny. Chris, didn't you already go past?
And the obvious takeaway from this is that the miniature Chris, or hero_sword as the merch calls them, they're the culprit here. They left the room shortly before we did. They must have killed Ramb on their way out and went on their merry way, right?
Fucking no, you fucking idiot. What the fuck are you talking about?
I'm kidding. I don't think you're an idiot if you thought that, because I thought that too. It's the obvious conclusion to come to. That's why most of us interpreted it that way and didn't think twice about it. But there are approximately 1 billion reasons why Hero Sword cannot be the culprit here. Starting with the quote itself. Let's read over that thing again. Chris, I was so scared I couldn't move. Ramb was. Wait a second, that's funny, Chris. Didn't you already go past? These are two separate thoughts. These are two separate events in the Rabbic's mind. If the concept of whatever happened to Ramb and the concept of Chris going by earlier were the same thing in the Rabbic's mind, then the Rabbic's train of thought wouldn't be interrupted midway. They would be part of the same story. And the Rabbic would be scared of Chris. They're obviously shaken up by the thing that happened to Ramb, but they regard Chris passing by earlier as like a funny coincidence. If the Rabbic thought Chris killed Ramb, they wouldn't be recounting the story of how Ramb was killed by Chris to Chris. And they would be terrified of Chris. They'd be running for their fucking lives, dude. Not only that, but let's think about the geography here for a second. If you'll remember, last time we saw Ramb, he was in an entirely different room from this Rabbic. And he can't move out into the hallway himself. He's petrified. We had to push him out of the way to get to where we were going. Yet this Rabbic saw what happened to Ramb. So like, did Hero Sword pick Ramb up and take him out into the hallway before killing him? This doesn't make sense, says the guy who invented toilet theory. Look, you could argue that I'm splitting hairs here, and I'd be willing to hear you out. Like, whatever, they're close enough on the map. Who cares if there's no literal line of sight between them? But they're separated by a closed door. And this would have been a really simple discrepancy to fix. Just take the Rabbic and put him in the room where Ramb was. I got curious and I walked back here and I saw the scary shit. It's that easy. So as it stands, I think the fact that that Rabbic saw whatever happened to Ramb means something. I don't think that Ramb was simply killed in place. For some reason, he was moved. And while we're at it, between you and me, I kind of just don't like the idea of Hero Sword having autonomy outside of our control. And I know that's like an insane thing to say, because the Rabbic literally says Chris passed by earlier. That's an immutable fact. Like, we know something that looked like Chris passed by earlier. But to me, Hero Sword is a stand-in for us. It's basically the soul wearing a little costume. And that moment at the end of the sword route where you walk out of the TV and confront Chris is so chilling. And so ironic, because cosmetically the roles were almost reversed for a while. They were holding a controller and you were on screen, but then you walk out of the screen and remind them who's boss. They back away, they're scared, and that's you they're scared of. The first moment that you really share with Chris where you get to interact with them for the first time. I'll shut the fuck up because I'm getting off track, but my point is that scene is about you and Chris. And the idea that Hero Sword is sentient and autonomous, that it was this third weird presence in that scene, really muddies and devalues the storytelling in that scene for me. To me, it makes so much more sense that once it leaves the screen and we transfer back to Chris, it just ceases to be alive, basically.
But hey, dummy, hey, stupid!
You yell at your computer screen. I wish you were that engaged. You're probably just like doing laundry.
The Rabbic still talks about Chris going by. You can't ignore that.
And yeah, you're right. I'm aware that my position on this has an uphill battle to fight. But there is one idea I've been entertaining recently of something the Rabbic could have seen go by that looked like Chris. And we'll get there in due time. We need to get back to Ramb. Regardless of how you feel about the tangent I just went on, recall my claims that 1. Hero Sword could not have been the culprit behind whatever happened to Ramb, and 2. Ramb wasn't simply killed, he was moved. Now here comes a third. I think that whatever happens to Ramb still happens even if you don't do the sword route. But didn't you say this is the section you were going to talk about the sword route?
Shut the fuck up.
Now, earlier in this video, I claimed that the reason Ramb never shows up to Castletown is because Chris didn't care enough to bring him. But truthfully, I think it's probably more accurate to say that Chris didn't care enough to look for him. And that's because I think Dream was taken. Ramb was taken. I think I've made a good case for why Ramb had to be moved out into the hallway during whatever happened. If whoever or whatever came for Ramb wanted to kill him, there was no reason not to do it in place. He was a sitting duck. In my opinion, there's no reason to indicate that Ramb was moved from where he was unless he was being taken somewhere. Unless someone really wanted to strike fear into the heart of this rabbit by killing Ramb in front of him, but I don't think that's the case. Furthermore, you and I both know that Deltarune loves hiding its truths behind ambiguity, and by God, did this rabbit really need to trail off its sentence 2 times and then not finish?
Ramb was what, motherfucker?
I think this was left open-ended for a reason, and just as easily as saying Ramb was attacked or killed or shattered, this rabbit could have been saying Ramb was taken or kidnapped. And now we get to the fact that Ramb doesn't show up in Castletown on either route. I admit, asserting that this is because of his kidnapping sort of does devalue my analysis from earlier, and that's kind of why I'm trying to have my cake and eat it too by saying that, actually, Chris didn't care enough to look for him. When, make no mistake, I think saying Chris just didn't care to bring him at all does tie together my narrative better. But if there's one thing I think I've learned from being in the theory trenches since Chapter 2, it's that I don't think it's a good idea to propose that one event happens because of 2 different sets of circumstances on different routes. What do I mean by that? Well, once upon a time, I was a
Chris opened another dark fountain because they want to have another fun adventure with Susie
truther. But to be that, you also had to be a
Chris opened another dark fountain on the weird route
because they want to protect their friends and family from you, so they'd rather have you kill Darkners than real people, truther. And that shit was nonsense, man. Chris opened another dark fountain because the knight told him to. Basically what I'm saying is, if the same thing happens on both routes, it's probably for the same reason. Applying that principle more practically to our situation here, whatever motivation this person had for taking Ramb on the sword route, we have no reason to believe they wouldn't have had this motivation on the regular route. Okay, so I feel like my believability is waning at the second here. You could choose to believe my made-up theory crafting principle or not. In the end, I suppose it doesn't even really matter whether it only happened on the sword route or not. The only real point here I'm trying to argue is that he's gonna come back eventually, not that he's gonna come back mandatorily and be the coolest fucking boss in the game. If he only does come back if you've done the sword route, then who cares? He still comes back. Really, what I hope I've made a good case for is the kidnapping angle, because now we're going to switch up gears and talk about who our culprit might be. And really, our list of suspects is rather small. It's 2 guys, and the 2 guys might even be 1 guy, depending on what theories you subscribe to. For my money, it's gotta be Friend or ERAMB, right? Every other being in this dark world can end up in Castletown with you, other than like the knight, I guess, but we see the knight leave with Undyne in its hand, so I don't think Ramb is tagging along. Really, the only other answer I'd accept is like Gaster, because you can slap Gaster's name onto any mystery, but like Friend's here already, that's like 1 degree of separation away. Friend and ERAMB are both intimately intertwined with the sword route, which Ramb is connected to. We're likely to meet both of them again someday, at least the fandom suspects so. They're both relatively spooky, and we have to remember whatever happened to Ramb did freak the rabbit out. And I'll admit this is very difficult to talk about because I don't really know where I stand on Friend and ERAMB these days. If you are completely out of the loop on this, I'll give as brief of a summary as I can. The thing you fight at the end of the sword route has been dubbed ERAMB by the fandom after one of its track names. It seems to be familiar with Chris and taunts them, is either holding or wearing the Shadow Mantle, and can summon a bunch of mini-friends during its fight. It's thought to be its own unique being due to its unique design traits and laugh, and if it is a Darkner based on an object, it's most widely speculated to be Chris's horned headband, due to the shape of this door that leads to its hiding place. However, there is another theory that I think is just as valid as this one. You can hear about it in a video of mine, Delta Ramble with Seek, but here's the rundown. ERAMB might not exist at all. All of the sprites for the boss you fight are just labeled Shadow Mantle in the game's files, implying you're just fighting the mantle itself, and the voice that speaks to you saying that it's holding the mantle says that before the mantle teleports into the room with you. And based on the fact that Friend orchestrates the entire sword route otherwise, for example, they most likely leave you the pink and yellow controller, they appear in secret rooms, and they also partake in the boss fight, it's very possible, in my opinion, that Friend is the one who speaks to you at the end of the sword route, and then sends the Shadow Mantle to fight you, meaning there is no ERAMB at all. And I'm not going to explain Friend. Come on, you're half an hour into this video and you don't know who Friend is, that you're not real. You're not a real person. Anyways, it is so hard to talk about this for me because I am so split on these characters right now. So let me make it simple. I think Friend took Ramb, which is awesome because I don't have to contend with whether Friend exists or not. That's not even true. I hate Deltarune. But let me tell you why. We don't know much about Friend or ERAM, but one thing we do know for sure about Friend is that they can travel between dark worlds, due to the fact that they appear in chapters 2, 3, and 4. I'm not speculating on why Ramb was kidnapped yet, but I figure it's for his usefulness as a Darkner and not as a Danish power strip, so I figure taking him to another dark world has to be the goal, and we know Friend can do that. But the second point here is where things really get interesting. We have some pretty damning evidence that Friend was in close proximity to Ramb. Are you aware of the smiling vending machine? The one vending machine back in the S-rank room that has 3 buttons to give you TV slop, and then a 4th button that just says smile, and when you click it, it says it's smiled. And also it says it's free, but it actually takes $1 from you. Smiles are Friend's whole motif, obviously. He has his big goofy smile, smile.og, and the description of the smile says always at your humble service, which is a crazy reference to some text that was buried deep down in the code of Undertale. These 4 lines of text, accessible only by digging through the files, are called Daemon A through Daemon D, implying that the character speaking them is just called Demon. Greetings. You have made yourself completely clear. Understood. I, your humble servant, will follow you to the utmost. So, I'm not going to pretend like I know what that is. Maybe it's Friend striking a deal with Gaster or something. You know, Demon, Tale of Hell. But the point is, this all adds up to the most suspicious Friend-coded vending machine you could imagine, next to the room where you get the Friend-themed controller that you use to fight Friend in a video game. And then, after you finish the fight, and after Ramb has disappeared, the smile is gone from the vending machine. You can no longer buy the smile. The option is gone. I'm sorry, is it not insanely telling that the smile and Ramb disappear at the same time? Now, I don't know if you'll agree with this, I have received some pushback on it from a certain Mr. Stuff, but I can't see the smile on the vending machine as anything other than an indicator of Friend's actual physical presence. I think it means Friend is here, in this vending machine, somehow. Like, probably not curled up inside the vending machine, but like melded into it, phased into it somehow. We don't know what Friend's power set is, right? But Friend is here. The vending machine smiling at you is Friend smiling at you, I think. So this begs the question, how is Friend's will being enacted backstage? How did that controller get left there for you? When you ask Ramb if anyone was backstage with you, he says no, he was on guard the whole time. But Friend's vending machine is stationed right outside of the room and Ramb is standing guard. How did Friend get back there without Ramb noticing? Well, I don't want to be completely obtuse about this, right? I said myself earlier that we don't know all of Friend's power set yet. For all we know, Friend could have teleported or walked through the wall or slid under the door like a shadow. But I want to entertain the possibility that everything was placed where it was for a reason. That there is a Ramb guarding the door between you and Friend to communicate something. Communicate what exactly? Well, there are 2 possibilities to me. But spoiler alert, they both involve Ramb lying. The first is that Ramb is just letting Friend in, holding the damn door open. Oh no, Chris, I didn't see anything, Chris, except for the big fucking 5-legged cat, but nothing else besides that one. And option 2 is that Ramb left the controller. And this is where the case starts getting blown the fuck open. Credit to my friend and background artist MomoSweetPeach for this revelation, because it's kind of insane and changed everything. You may know that the green room is representative of Chris and Azriel's room in the light world, right? Have you ever considered what Ramb's booth is representative of, though? Ramb's booth is full of the stuff that Azriel left behind when he left for college. I mean, he has a mouse hanging up back there. Is there any other computer in this household? He has several boxes lying around, and sure enough, Azriel has boxes of old books under his computer desk. The swords might be representative of the type of books they were, like fantasy adventure books or something. The original game he lets you play in the Sword Route has been speculated to be Cat Petter's RPG, and that is literally under Azriel's bed. Hell, Ramb himself is probably under Azriel's bed, along with all the other loose cords hanging up back here. And of course, a game console with 1 normal controller and 1 knockoff one. Ramb had the odd controller the whole time! Oh my god, it was literally a fucking Mad Catz controller. I'm gonna fucking lose it. But do you see what I'm getting at here with both of these possibilities? Whether it was Friend or Ramb who left the controller, Ramb is in cahoots with Friend. He's working for him. I think Friend took Ramb, yeah, but maybe it wasn't exactly a kidnapping. Maybe it was a you haven't outlived your usefulness kind of deal. And hold on. I know it sounds like I've jumped the shark. You're 45 minutes into my Ramb video and I've just revealed I think Ramb is fucking evil. This is not true. I said at the beginning of this video that I was joining the war on Ramb on the side of Ramb, and that is still true. Here's the thing. Ramb wants what's best for Chris. That is a core character trait of this man, and something I believe about him to the utmost. And now, with all my beliefs about Ramb laid out on the table, I can finally talk about his involvement with the sword route. Okay, I told you this video was going to get more unhinged as it went on, okay? I opened with the grounded character analysis, and this is the character analysis that I fucking made up. Yes, I think Ramb was being dishonest about how that controller got backstage, but I don't think Ramb is lying through his teeth every time you talk to him. So what are his true motivations in wanting Chris to do the sword route so badly? Well, he could not be more clear about it. His dialogue is constantly coming back to the same two words: freedom and fun. Not for himself, but for Chris. Seriously, something that I feel goes under-discussed in all the talk about Ramb being a fake-out secret boss is that he never once expressed his desire for personal freedom, only freedom for Chris. Here, I'm just gonna speedrun all of the mentions of freedom and fun in Ramb's dialogue.
See, I knew you wouldn't like it. Something's missing, right? Some action, some mystery, maybe some more freedom. But if I know Chris, and boy do I know Chris, that's not what you want, innit? Freedom. That's what you want, chum. Freedom. I'll keep an eye out for Tenna. You go have some real fun, alright, love? Ah, Chris, stick around here long enough and you'll learn that freedom's just a thing for big shots.
I know this line is memed to death, but you have to understand he says this after calling Chris a dressing room big shot. He's saying freedom is something that Chris can attain, but not him.
Chris, how was it? Lots of fun? Maybe you had a little extra taste of that, you know?
Referring to freedom, obviously.
I'm glad you're having real fun, Chris. It's the least I could do.
Now, may I remind you, freedom and fun are both loaded words in this community, freedom being the secret boss word and fun being the Gaster word. But like I said, I buy that Ramb wants what's best for Chris, and I could believe his involvement with the sword route was a coincidence, an honest mistake, if not for a few key factors. Number one, based on the reasoning I gave earlier, I think one way or another he lied about how that controller got there. And number two, one of the last things he says before he petrifies.
That's been my purpose, you know. Letting you play your games.
What? Hello? Your purpose? Your purpose was letting Chris play the games? That's not something I say when I was doing something by choice of my own volition. Am I crazy? I don't know. Am I making a mountain out of a molehill right now, or is that insane? Like, Ramb admitting that he's been given a purpose in this dark world? Like, Chris made this dark world, right? And they gave Tenna the purpose of distracting the heroes. Chris hates the sword route. It makes them ill. It makes them uncomfortable. They don't want to be doing this. They didn't tell Ramb to make them do this. Who told Ramb to do this? I mean, you probably know my guess. I think Friend told Ramb to do this. So, here's what I think is happening. Welcome to part 3, Unfounded Ramblings. This is the part of the video where I stop pretending to be a theorist and admit that I'm a fanfic writer. So here's the whole picture of what I think is going on. I think Friend is the orchestrator of the sword route. I don't think that's like a controversial thing to say. And who knows what the true purpose of the sword route is, but two things we can say for sure that it does is teach us about the weird route and give us the shadow mantle, which in turn helps us get a shadow crystal later. The weird route and the shadow crystals have both been referenced as potential ways to break the prophecy at some point in the future of this game. So in a sort of twisted, unpleasant way, you could say that the sword route does offer freedom, or at least an advancement toward it. And Chris certainly wants freedom, probably from us and probably from their allyship with the Knight as well. This also isn't Friend's first time showing interest in our quest for the shadow crystals, since the first time you can ever see Friend's face is in Queen's basement when you're heading for the Neo body, and that's where Spamton finds the crystal. I don't claim to know Friend's goals and all this, but I wouldn't be surprised if it had some interest in our ability to break free of the prophecy. The tale that must be followed, the tale which must not be followed. Also, if you believe that Friend was Mike, and I think there's a pretty good argument for it, check out Seek's video for details on that, then Friend was also likely the one who put the idea of freedom into Spamton's head. And if Friend is the freedom guy, then I wouldn't be surprised if that's where Jevil got the idea too, but that's less supported. Regardless, Ramb had to get the idea from somewhere too. But Friend took a different strategy with Ramb, I think. Friend used Ramb's affection for Chris and his desire to outshine Tenna. Remember, Ramb knows about Tenna's plan to distract the heroes and keep Toriel locked up while they wait for the night to arrive. Ramb is the one watching over Toriel, he knows everything. But unlike Tenna, he doesn't want to just follow Chris's orders so they'll like him, he actually wants what's best for Chris. And living this weird double life, keeping their mom locked up can't be good for them. And then along comes Friend with a deal he cannot refuse. Get Chris to play this game! You can show them a much better time than Tenna can. Show them what real fun is, like in the good old days. They'll feel so free from all this night stuff, they'll snap out of it, they'll go back to normal and thank you. Just make sure they use this controller, and make sure you never tell them I was here. I think Ramb was manipulated into helping with the sword route, not because he's secretly evil and fucked up, but because he actually cares about Chris. Because he wants Chris to have freedom for whatever fucked up situation they're in, and in some weird way, Friend does too? But Ramb does not know the extent of what's going on in the sword route. We know this because one of the times Chris walks out of the room, Ramb even asks if Chris is doing okay. And toward the end of the route, Ramb starts to realize that nothing has changed, that Chris hasn't snapped out of it. That's been my purpose, you know, letting you play your games, but now that the games are almost over, makes you think, was it really all such a good idea? Your mother, your poor mother, what will happen if she wakes up? What am I doing? A power strip, giving you a lecture. Just play your games, love. Chris, if not for fun, why'd you do it? It is true that before this excerpt started, he was asking Chris why they made the fountain, and most people interpret that last line, if not for fun, why'd you do it, as a repeat of that question. But reading this in isolation, is it possible he's asking Chris why they did the sword route? I don't know, food for thought. I literally just thought of that. Anyways, you know what I haven't said in a while? Ramb will return. And speaking of, how do I think Ramb is gonna return? Like, what does the comeback of the century actually look like? Well, based on the assumption that Friend is operating out of the shelter, which I guess, like, isn't even really that founded, but it's just like, we all think that, right? Like, you're not gonna listen to me spout bullshit for this long and then be like, hold on, you didn't prove Gaster and Friend are in the shelter. But yeah, I'm imagining like the classic chapter 6 or 7 type situation where we go into the shelter dark world, and I think that's where we encounter Ramb. And yes, I think a boss fight is in our future. But the question is why? Why would Ramb fight us after all of the goodwill I've sung for him throughout this whole video? And why would Friend bother bringing him here in the first place? Well, obviously this is like fanfiction upon fanfiction upon fanfiction, but I have two equally tragic ideas. And they're both based in the character analysis that I started out this video with. Yes, that's right, I lied. This whole video was necessary. It was all leading up to something. I didn't even know that when I started recording, but it was. The first possibility is that we see Ramb complete his secret boss arc. What do I mean by that exactly? Well, we've already talked at length about all the ways in which Ramb mirrors the qualities of the secret bosses that came before him. Abandoned in the light world, ostracized in the dark world, fixated on freedom. But Jevil and Spamton are insane and Ramb isn't. And why is that? Well, when Spamton lost his success, he lost everyone. Tenna, Mike, Queen, Swatch, every single other Addison. Spamton is so alone in the world he can't even say the word love. When Jevil lost his position in the King's Court and was locked away by himself for the rest of his life, his best friend, his only friend, Sham, was the one to do it. The thing that Ramb has that separates him from these two is his defining character trait, the one I've been going on and on about for this whole video, his connection with Chris. Jevil and Spamton have no one in this world to care for and no one to care for them, and they have been driven mad. Ramb, despite being in a similar situation, completely ostracized by everyone in their world, being essentially stripped of a job. Again, he doesn't get a shop, the vending machines do his job for him, all he does is stand at a counter and mix drinks for himself. Ramb's lifeline is knowing at the end of the day that he has someone he loves and they love him too. Spamton's most iconic speech quirk is the word love getting blocked out from his vocabulary. Ramb's most iconic speech quirk is calling Chris love every chance he gets. But what would happen to Ramb if he realized that that person stopped caring about him a long time ago? Ramb spends chapter 3 convinced that he belongs in TV world because Chris's love makes him belong. But by the time he starts to petrify, by the time he starts to realize that that's not true, there's no one in the world to shed a tear for him. And that's why I think, as opposed to Jewel or Spamton, who have already gone through their secret boss transformation arc, Ramb will be an interesting case because we will see what happened to Jewel and Spamton happen to him in real time. We'll have known the person he was before getting to know the person he becomes. Because when he finally wakes up in the Shelter Dark world, it's all going to hit him. Like Spamton, the entire world could not care less about his downfall. Like Jewel, his best friend betrayed him and he is alone in the dark. And when we encounter him again, maybe he won't be so quick to call Chris love. That's all I'm saying. Or, possibility 2. Maybe Ramb's spirit is harder to crush than I think it is. Maybe Friend has taken him to the shelter to drive him mad in a similar way to Jewel and Spamton, but it just doesn't work. Despite having every reason in the world to become a secret boss type, he has integrity, he sticks to his morals, and he wants what's best for Chris. Despite it all, he cares about that kid who brought him home all those years ago. Even if they're not who they used to be, he knows they're going through a rough patch right now. He just wants to support them in any way he can. And maybe once you find him in the shelter, he's ready to do just that. He scrounged together whatever useful items he could find around here and opened a little shop. Imagine that, he finally gets the shop screen he was deprived of all that time ago. He finally gets to use that shop music that was meant for him all this time. But I can't let a good thing last for Ramb. I have emphasized how necessary it is that Ramb transforms into a were-wire if we end up battling him. And when you plug something into a plug boy's face, besides powering them up, the other defining feature of this transformation is that the plug controls them. And maybe that quality is what made Ramb so promising to Friend in the first place. In this version of the scenario, despite everything, despite Ramb doing everything in his power to help Chris, Ramb is made to fight you against his will. So, which one of these two scenarios do you like better? Ramb succumbing to the traditional secret boss archetype, or Ramb overcoming it but being forced to fight you anyways? In a way, I think they both play into the larger themes of Deltarune regarding fate, your choices don't matter, etc. But which of them is more tragic for Deltarune's most tragic baby boy? I can't decide, so let me know. And I think that's like it. I think that's like my whole Ramb theory. The video's not quite over yet though. For the very last itty bit, I just want to throw out a few more thoughts. Some of them I don't even necessarily agree with, but I just feel like I have to say them somewhere. Welcome to the lightning round. I don't know what to call it. First of all, I just want to say that I don't think the first scenario I proposed is weakened by the fact that Ramb isn't being controlled by something, because traditionally were-wires have to have something plugged into their face, right? And I think that Ramb's boss fight has to be in the were-wire form. So I'd get it if you said it doesn't make sense that Ramb would fight us on his own, but Ramb is a power strip, so he has the sockets and the plug. I think he could feasibly become a were-wire on his own by plugging into himself. And yeah, maybe it'd be weird to have him suddenly like grow a tail or something to plug into his own face, but I think they could make it work. It could be like Ouroboros kind of deal, right? Rambo Bambos. That wasn't even supposed to be in this afterthoughts section. I just forgot to mention it in the earlier section and I didn't want to find a place to put it in. The next thing I wanted to say is that I'm aware not all of these ideas are like Kami originals. What I mean to say is I arrived at all these conclusions myself, but I'm not the first guy to say all of them. For example, I've been around the block enough times to hear the Ramb got kidnapped idea floating around. So in acknowledging that, I wanted to shout out a really cool theory called WER-ERAMB. It was written by Brix Braxium, a prominent member of the ACDS and extraordinaire at getting his name mentioned on my channel. I originally got his permission to do a whole segment breaking it down, but unfortunately I'm running out of time. Now that I have a sponsor, I'm legally obligated to have a video out in April. How scary is that? But anyways, reading this theory is seriously worth your time. There are a lot of cases of parallel thinking between me and Brix's theories, but our biggest difference is who we think kidnapped Ramb. I'm on the friend train, he's on the ERAMB train. He proposes that ERAMB is like a spirit that needs a host. It was using the Shadow Mantle as a host when you fight it, and Ramb is its next host, which is how he's going to be controlled as a were-wire. In particular, this theory has two pieces of evidence that have fully convinced me were-wires will be important at some point, and they need to be accredited to Brix. First of all, the battle flavor text, "The air crackles." almost exclusively used in secret boss fights to say the air crackles with freedom, or in Gerson's case, the air crackles green with freedom. One additional case is in the Sound of Justice fight where it says the air crackles with sound, which is very obviously directly related to Gerson. The only other instance of this phrase in the whole game is against the were-wire. The air crackles with fighting spirit. The only time this phrase is used in the game, and it has nothing to do with the secret boss, it's against a were-wire variant. Surely that has to mean something. Second of all, the name of the theory. You put where and ramb together, and the word ERAM exists in between them? How could that not come into play somehow? So yeah, I wish I could cover this theory more in depth, but the link is in the description. Please go read it yourself. What's next? The alternate explanation I referred to earlier of what the rabbit could have seen walk by that looked like Chris? I get that this is a reach, but if it wasn't Hero Sword, I think the other possibility could be ERAM, if ERAM does exist. This idea, I admit, is formed off of a lot of fan art and headcanon, but there's this really popular idea that if ERAM is a Darkner based on the horn headband that Chris used to wear, then the actual form that they take is like a dark version of Chris, right? I think it's cool, I like that idea. And I imagine if that's true, the mechanics of it are like, basically, I'm fully convinced that the thing you are fighting in the game is the Shadow Mantle. Like, even if ERAM does exist and was talking to you, that thing was not ERAM. ERAM just sent the Shadow Mantle to fight you. Because you have to remember, in the way Tenna's games are set up, people play from opposite sides of the screen. So if ERAM does exist, I think they were playing as the Shadow Mantle. And that would track, because if they're like a dark version of Chris, Chris is fucking good at video games. And once you beat them, they leave, and the Rabbit sees them leave. And I know that's overcomplicating it, but just let me live a little. Okay, next up. What the fuck is Ramb's name? I brought this up in like an unrelated video. I think it was in the Guess Who video on Seek's channel, now that I think about it. And the comments were all like, oh, it's like computer RAM, obviously. I know what computer RAM is, guys. The problem is, Ramb's not a fucking computer! Yeah, I know he helps you play video games, but every other Darkner in the goddamn world has a really obvious name related to what they are. Why is this the one guy who doesn't? He's a power strip. Ram is related to computers in particular. Just because he's electric doesn't mean he's related to Ram. Is he seriously named Ram because he gives you access to a video game that's unrelated to him? That's like Jackenstein being named Climb Claws. That's like King being named Child Abuse. Is it because he's supposed to be like a lamb, like a baby sheep? If it is, that throws all of my stock in him being a dog and all the points related to that out the fucking window, dude. If we never get an explanation for why he's named that, boy. Okay, very last thing, and then I'll finally let you leave. Ram's appearance, his physical appearance is insane. Like, so first of all, his head is like an egg, like a perfect egg, which wouldn't be that suspicious except for the fact that he's like really tied to Chris's childhood. And then there's also an Eggman in this game who is also really tied to Chris's childhood. Is Ram an egg? No, obviously not. I don't know, did Chris get Ram from the Eggman? Is that why Ram was so special to them? But then to go even further, Ram looks like fucking Gaster, okay? If you take his hair ears off, that's Gaster. He has Gaster's smile, his color, his head shape. His eyes aren't quite as big, but like they could be, probably. Not to mention how Gaster is also speculated to be the Eggman, maybe. And also Gaster's head is shaped like an egg. But then you look at the whole Gaster sprite, the whole Mystery Man sprite, and it's Ram's bald head on top of Friend's head. This is Ram and Friend after the events of this game. I'm so serious. After Friend combines with Ramb or whatever the fuck for their boss fight together, they are banished across space and time, and these are their heads stuck together forever. Friend's smile gone. Okay, that's it. Bye. Alright, hey, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching this video. I don't plan to spend a lot of time on the outro today, due to a lot of personal circumstances that I'm not gonna get into. Finishing this video was like my personal fucking Mount Everest. I am so glad to be almost done with this thing. So I really hope you liked it. Like I said before, please consider subscribing if you haven't already and checking out my Patreon. And here come those Patreon shoutouts. First of all, thank you so much to my $3 patrons, the Freaklets, on screen now. I'm thankful to each and every one of you guys. I could not do it without you. Look at all those names. Wow. I actually can't believe how many names there are. It's crazy.
Next up, thank you to I'm going full ASMR this time, I don't know why. Thank you to my $5 patrons, the Little Freaks, including Irupop, Lady Edekin, Juicemated, Duck Quack, The Awesome GN, Leo, Bullet, Saturn, Fossil Hunter, Totally Human Productions, Weirdo, The Witch of Art, Mesmer, Maycat, Robert Rock, Robert, but it's spelled in a cool robot way, Vortex, Pain, The Quankster, Good Soft Gay, Director Kate, Sourpuss, Loom, Red Pikmin from the Super Mario Galaxy movie, Bradley the Radley, HLO, Ilerbagami with a little cat smiley face at the end, Exolofa, Mechalus, Catherine Turner, Uvsker, Locomo, Molly Stars. Hi Molly, it's Marcel here. My dog just whined a little bit in the background. He's taking a nap.
Can you guys hear that?
Random Bear.
Bro he's having a dream. Aww. He's going crazy. What are you dreaming about, buddy? Okay, that was the end of the Little Freaks anyways. Thank you guys so much. Next up is my $10 patrons, the Average Freaks, including Muffins, Spookow, Cracked Vinyl, King Clownbot, Ein Uteranus, Lime Soda, Claire Duckett, Shake P, and Aria Anervaria. Is that how you pronounce that? Thank you guys so very much.
And next up are the $20 huge freaks who all have their portraits on screen now. That's part of the tier. Marshall, Gay Dad, Middle Orapine, Shiny Gem, Cinnabar, and Torio K.
What am I doing?
Thank you guys from the bottom of my silly little heart.
And last but not least, thank you to my one and only $50 patron and true freak, Tybee Fitzhugh. Couldn't do it without you, Tybee. My dogs keep on making noise, man. Tybee, I'll leave that one in for you. You seem like a dog person, I say, with no evidence. Thanks for listening if you got this far. Are you a freak who listens to all the Patreon shout outs? Let me know. Let me know if you heard the dog shit in this video. If you comment and say, I heard the dog shit, I'll know. Love ya. Mwah.